Hi, everybody. So great to see you on this wonderful Wednesday. I'm going to get started, and if folks jump into the waiting room, I'll just admit them as we go. We renamed this to Ask Materio Anything. It's a play off of Reddit's Ask Me Anything, if anybody on here is a Redditor. So we're excited about that rebranding of this name. I will dive into some features that come up. Oftentimes, I'm kind of making the decision based on what comes up in support. But I think another great thing, like in our support chat, but another great thing could be if after this, you all have any recommendations or requests of what you would like to see in the next deep dive, don't hesitate to reach out and request that. And I can consider that. So today, what I'm going to do first is something that comes up a lot for us, which is how to process returns and cancellations and exchanges within your scope of work. So we'll do that. I'm going to go through 3 scenarios, so it'll probably take a little bit of time. So here we go. All right, let me share my screen. So here we have 3 pieces of furniture, sofa, love seat, and ottoman. We're going to start with the scenario that has the least amount of steps, which is, let's say you sent this ottoman to your client, they approved it, so it is a selected item, and then you invoiced them and they paid for it, and now you're returning it. So in this scenario, you're not exchanging it. You haven't paid out a PO yet, so it truly is just they selected it and you invoiced for it and they paid. So I already set this up for us as if that flow already happened. You can see here that they paid that $392.64. So they decided, you know what, I'm going to stick with my old ottoman. I don't want a new ottoman. You can just go ahead and return that. I don't need a replacement. What you're going to do is you go into scope, you open up this item, and you need to zero it out and create a new item. And that's because what you need to process here is a credit for that item that was already selected and invoiced. So if you delete this, you're not following the proper flow with finances because you won't have the opportunity to process a credit directly attached to that item. So one of the things that's really important when you're in Materio is process integrity or financial integrity, which is if you process something, if you invoice for it, if you paid a PO, you don't want those things being deleted because then that's not the true path that was taken for historical documentation, whether you're rectifying your books, whether you're syncing to PBO, whatever it may be. So how do we solve this? What we're going to do is we're actually going to revise this selection and we're going to zero it out. That's the first thing that we're going to do. So I opened up into the selection. I'm going to click revise. And I'm going to make sure that this is fully zeroed out. Client tax, 0. Save product. I don't want to apply these changes to the library, just this item. And I can cancel out here. This didn't reopen the selection. I don't have to approve it again. It just zeroed that out. Now I'll get a little ahead of myself real quick and I'll show you if I expand this, it now says that there's a credit due for the item. Again, this is why it's so important to not delete the item because Materio is built to automatically trigger these things for you. What we're going to do before we go ahead and process that credit, actually, no, we're going to process that credit because in this scenario, we're actually not doing an exchange. And so there is no new item. So when we go into finances and you go new and you go credit, add credit items, we don't want to freeform this. When you select project scope, it's automatically going to show up there. So you click on that, you click next, add to credit. If you save draft, that credit won't show up yet. You're going to want to go ahead and you're going to want to publish that. And now this amount of money you can see is represented in your credits available. I think that that's probably really small for you all. So maybe if I go like that, it can zoom in and you can see it better. So when you go and process an invoice in the future, you'll be able to use that credit against that invoice. I'll show you that. Let's just say I am going to now invoice for the fridge. Adding that in. I'm going to save this as a draft. When I open this up, if I go and click apply payment, it's smaller for you guys again, I can now select from retainer or credit. And so this amount, this $392.64 shows up, and I'm going to apply all of that. Is that one? Okay. And so now that I've applied that, you can see that the balance due is that difference. So when you send that invoice to your client, their balance is now going to be that reduced price because you've processed and issued that credit against it. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. In case you missed our email, we now have invoice reminders. So just little thing there, that's a new feature. I'm going to click send. One of the things that I forgot is that we highly recommend you putting canceled here. That way you understand, it's actually more than a recommendation. This is the process that we outline, is that you have canceled here, and then you can understand why that's zeroed out and your client has an understanding of that as well. All right, so let's say you now want to exchange something. So we're going to use this love seat as an example. You can see that the client has already paid in full for this. I'll go ahead and I'll open up that invoice. That's right here. The first steps are going to be the same exact steps as we did before, which is we're going to go into this item. We're going to revise it. Make sure that's zeroed out. Update this item only. I'm going to type in exchanged. Go ahead and save that. And now what I want to do is I actually want to create a new item for this. So I'll put, if you want to put new love seat, you could, or you can just do love seat here. And I know that so we're going to go here and choose this. And again, send it. And let's say my client approved. So now we have this new love seat. So we zeroed out the one that is being exchanged. I went ahead and I wrote exchange in that title. And then we entered in the new love seat. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to publish that credit for that love seat that we just exchanged. That original one. So I'll go to credit here. Project scope. Again, this is not something that you freeform write in because it's something that we trigger for you. Credit. This is now published. And that means that when I go in and I add in the new love seat, which is significantly higher, I'll send this. Open it up. And I'm going to apply payment. I could have done this the first time, but I'm going to do this now before I even sent it. This will update when this, let's say you already sent the invoice, and then you say, oh, I have to apply this credit. The link that your client gets will be updated. So you don't have to worry about that. So request balance. And so now you can see that the amount is this 54 and change, but what's due by your client is this 4,700 and change. So sometimes what folks want to do is they want to delete this invoice or again, delete the item and freeform credit. And that's not what you want to do. You want to keep all financial documents the way that they are and process the exchange this way. So that's the second scenario. Let's move on to the one that has a bit of a different scenario. So this sofa. So this sofa has been sent to your client. They've selected it. You paid your PO and they have decided that they don't want this couch anymore. So it's a little tricky because your money has already gone out, but you haven't collected money from them, so you don't owe them a credit. So what you're going to do here is you are going to, again, follow the same process. So the first few steps, you're going to first provide this, zero it out. We've got the zero. This could have been returned. It could have been canceled. It depends on what the flow is. Let's say that this was canceled. And I'm going to save this. Now, in this scenario that I'm outlining, perhaps you're doing an exchange, perhaps you're getting something new. If that's the case, if you're still sourcing a sofa for them, then you're going to want to go through that same step of creating that new item and going through that process. But if they just canceled the sofa and they don't want it anymore, then it would be that first scenario that I outlined for you with canceling. So the question here is, okay, what do you do with this PO? You have this document, perhaps you're syncing to QuickBooks, it's showing up in QuickBooks. Something that a lot of folks think that they should do is they think that they should delete this PO. You should not delete this PO following, the best practice of never deleting historical documentation of financial transactions that you've completed. So instead, what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to want to document a refund. So let's say this vendor refunded you for this, which can often be likely. You're going to keep this PO completely the same. You're not going to edit this PO. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to your finances and you're going to go to your expenses. And you're actually going to document this as a new expense because there's a check mark here that will indicate that it's a refund. So again, when you're reconciling your books, you're going to be able to see that there's been a refund associated with this item, and it will show up in your books the proper way for you to be able to reconcile that. So I'm going to call this the Victorian furniture sofa return. Now, the reason why it's important for you to still put in your scope of work that it's canceled, and if you're doing a new item, for you to create that new item, is because when you're documenting this refund, you want it to be connected to that original item. So if you were to just reopen that selection and choose a new selection, then you're going to miss that opportunity, that step in the process to tag it to that item. So that's another reason why this is important. Let me remind myself. So I paid, as you can see, I already paid here. So I'm going to do $6,300. And I'm going to click that this is a refund, so you can see that that shows up differently. And this, oops, I'm missing an attachment. Pretend like that's a receipt or some documentation. So you can see that this is syncing to QuickBooks. So now you can see that this refund here is accounted for, and that's how you're going to go ahead and document that. So I will pause there. That's the scenario when a paid for PO needs to be accounted for. Let's get into what it looks like for a deposit. So what I did here was the same process as before, which is it was selected, I pulled a deposit for it, and I sent out a deposit for it. My client paid it. And so now we have to go through the same process, right? Let's say we were canceling it. So I zeroed it out. I'm putting in here canceled. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you will see now that this is indicating for me that there's a credit due. So what's great about this, and just a reminder to you all, when you collect a deposit, the money that you're collecting must be used against that item. So when you invoice later, that is tied to that item. You can't use deposit funds on other items. Sometimes folks can get confused about that. But what's great is that when you go to issue a credit, this $7,000 is going to be freed up. So you'll add this credit here. And you'll click publish, and you will be able to use that credit against any invoice in the future. It doesn't have to be a future doors item. It can just be used across the board, regardless of what's on your invoice. So that is the deposit process. So let's say this fridge, which has been, let me find something that's been fully paid for. Give me a second. Let's say this kitchen sink. Let's say this kitchen sink has been paid for and it actually turned out like it's been invoiced for or deposit, it wouldn't matter. And it turns out that it actually ended up being $500. So let's say we revise this, the price changes. There are a few different ways that you can change a price within Materio. I will show you this one this time. And let's say the cost went down to $300 and you're deciding to give that difference to your client. And you click Save Product, update this item only. It's going to trigger here again that a credit is due. So then you'll go through that same process. You'll go back to your finances, you'll click New Credit, and you'll publish that difference there. Now, let's say it goes up. And what was it, about $600 before? So let's revise this. Let's say the unit cost goes to $800 and you're pushing that cost onto your client. Now it's going to say that the client has only paid 63%. And then you're going to owe, they're going to owe money. So another place that you could see this, if you go into selections and you go to confirmed, is you're going to see that partially paid there. And when you go to create an invoice, what was it, the prep sync? Yeah, it's the prep sync. So now it's showing you that you need to invoice for that $360 difference. Thank you so much. I always love seeing you all and answering your questions. Hopefully this was helpful, and come back in 2 weeks and we'll do another one and bring your questions. All right, thanks y'all.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.